Hi there, welcome back. Well, some progress. I've done the two tests on the transformers. Both the output transformer and the power transformer seem to be okay, according to those tests, obviously. And it's not certain because those tests do not use high voltage, and these things are high voltage devices. But so far, so good. It's encouraging. And in the process, I've been looking at the circuit, the schematic. I've put it on my computer. I'm using Adobe, and I do the painting or the coloring in as I go along. And I'll show you that in a second. But what I also want to show you is it's interesting what you find when you work on these things, because some little details are just a little bit surprising. And I'll show you what I mean. This is the underside of the filter capacitor. And contrary to what I said earlier, it's not a two-stage capacitor. There are actually three capacitors in there. It's also got a 4 microfarad. Now, what I found is a little bit strange. Here's your selenium rectifier, the positive. The negative comes out and goes to a ground lug over there. That's pretty normal, okay? What they've done with the positive is, besides going off to the transformer, the center tap of the primary of the output transformer, it also gets filtered down here. That's obviously the positive of one of the filter caps. Now, the problem is when they put the positive there, they then put the cap in, and the cap has 3 sort of metal tags that come through the chassis, and then you twist them. They twisted this guy, which is chassis, and it's like, I don't know, half a millimeter, less than half a millimeter away from the B+ filter cap here. So that's just one of those things. It didn't short, and it's obviously been there from, well, since it was produced. But it just goes to show that these things can go wrong. They can have mistakes, or they can have situations where, well, quality control was not really an issue back then. While we're here, I haven't changed those caps yet. I've cleaned up all the wiring over here. I've actually started cleaning some of the rust over here. It's still not complete. I have not replaced the selenium rectifier yet, which I'm probably going to do. But for the purposes of testing the power up at least, I want to leave this as is. I've done the check on the schematic, and everything seems to be okay. The switch was a little bit dirty, but that was cleaned out. And here's the top of the output transformer where the first replacements were made. These two capacitors are in the output circuit with a high voltage applied, which is why it's considered to be part of the, well, this initial cleanup to test the power supply. 2 caps were swapped out. One is 1 nanofarad, the other one was 1.5. And they read something crazy. I mean, the 1 nanofarad was about a 2.8. So they were completely gone. In contrast, the resistors, I'm going to show you, these resistors are amazing. I'm going to measure these 2 resistors that are on the output transformer. Now, one of them, the first one, the big one, is a wire wound, and it's supposed to be 1K. Damn! Unbelievable. And look at the 100K. 1% out. Now this thing is what, 38, 58, 60 years old, almost 60 years old. So, so far, what I said earlier is proven correct. These resistors generally hold out very well. The capacitors generally are kaput, almost guaranteed. So I want to show you one more bit on the underside that was changed as well, and I'll explain on the schematic why I changed that. Now this is on the underside by the output power tube socket, which is just off screen up here. And there is a resistor and capacitor in series, and that's it over there. That's a resistor. It's 22K, and underneath is a 10 nanofarad capacitor. That was also changed out, and it's a good thing it was, because that thing was one of the worst of the lot. And this RC set or series set actually is connected across the 2 anodes of the two power elements in the power tube. So if you've got serious leakage there, you can really mess up the tube and the output transformer and all sorts of stuff. So let me show you in the schematic what was done and why. First of all, we've got the power circuit down here, the input, the mains input, goes through a switch. That was tested, that works fine. You have the voltage selection through the fuses, and the fuse they've selected is 220 volts, which is fine. That fuse was okay. Then it goes through and you get the voltage that has to come out here into the selenium bridge rectifier, which I haven't tested yet. I have not powered this up yet. Then we get that going out of here, up here, and it meets the first filter cap. This is 1/2 or 1/3 of what's in that filter cap can. They actually have 3 capacitors, 2 50 microfarads and 1 4 microfarad. So that goes into one of them, and straight from there it goes off to 2 points. One is to the center tap of the output transformer, and from there it goes to the one anode of that pentode, which is half of that ELL80 tube, and it also goes from there to the anode of the other pentode. So far so good. That was all checked. All the connections are made. When I say connections are made, I'm talking about continuity measurements. That's all. Then if we go back down here, from that B+, that's the main B+, it's supposed to be 270 to 280 volts. There's a Y1 resistor, that's that 1K, the big black guy we measured on the top there. 1K resistor, 3 watt. It goes to the second filter cap inside that can. It also goes off up here to the 2 screen grids of the pentodes. So I believe that's pin 1 and 9. It also goes off on that 100K resistor that we measured, which measured 1% out, to feed the electrostatic tweeters. So it goes from there to there. It's actually the power supply to the electrostatic tweeters. This thing is providing power, B+, to the electrostatic tweeters. So you've got 2 elements going to the tweeters. One is DC, which is the DC voltage that establishes the electric field, the high voltage. Remember, it's called an electrostatic tweeter. And the other one is actually the audio that's going to modulate that high voltage to give you that high frequency sound. So they give it a power supply from here. This is effectively B2+, and it should be, you know, 250 or something volts. I can't see any indication over here. But if that one's 270, it goes through the resistor, that'll be 250 or so. So 250 volts through 100K, and it basically charges the electrostatic tweeters. And then the audio that modulates comes from here. It's the audio that's going into the transformer that's being pumped in through those 2 anodes. Remember, those 2 anodes of the power tube are using this transformer as a load. And then, of course, the secondary is your audio to your speaker. But it's taking some of that audio through that resistor, which is 1 nanofarad. And what that does, what that resistor does, in conjunction with the rest of the components, is it basically is taking the high frequencies only through to there, to that high voltage line. So you've got DC 200 and something volts here, and you've got your AC audio going through there to there, and that modulates the electrostatic plate, or one of the plates, and gives you your high frequency sound. This capacitor, 1.5 nanofarad, has to do 2 things. One, it's filters that B+ that's coming from through that 100K resistor. It acts as a bit of a filter, but it also cannot be a drain for the high frequencies. If you make this capacitor too big, then all the high frequencies, all the audio coming through here, and only high frequencies will come through here, will just simply drain to ground, and it won't get to the speakers, to the tweeters. So there's a fine line in adjusting those values, and these values were completely out. What else? Oh, this capacitor here, this one, and this resistor here. Those are the two that I showed you on the other side, and that's connected between this anode and that anode. So it's effectively creating an RC filter network, which will, these are opposite, so these will cancel out certain frequencies. And again, the higher you make that 1.1 nanofarad capacitor, the more high frequencies you will cut out. So you're basically creating a high frequency trap so that ultra high frequencies don't get into the transformer at all, and you don't end up with high frequency oscillations, which is a problem because you can't really hear those high frequencies. But if you do have those oscillations, both your power transformers being subjected to high frequency, which could be at a high voltage as well as your power tubes are working on those high frequencies, regardless of whether you can hear it or not. So that's important to take care of that. So what we've done so far, if we look at it, we've also obviously got here the heater supplies, which also supplies the two dial lamps. And the heater supply, they've divided it up. They've got the ECC 83. Why have they divided it up? I think because they've connected the ECC 83 as a 12 volt heater. The ECC 83 is a 12AX7, 5949, yeah. It's 12AX7, and it's got two triodes in there, and it's being used as a phase inverter. We'll get into that when we look at the audio circuit itself. And the heater system here is either 12 or it can be 0606, or actually 6.3. And it seems that they've connected that separately, probably to avoid noise. I think that's the only reason, because you can connect the, if you take these two heaters and you put them in parallel, this normally has a center, which is, the center is 9, I think pin 9, and it's a common ground for the heaters. So you could actually just connect the two as 6.3. I don't know why they've done 12. But if you separate it, it's usually to avoid noise from this tube going into those tubes. And those tubes over here, in other words, the tubes back here, are much more sensitive to noise than these guys over here. Because these guys are dealing with audio frequencies. Basically, they're dealing with audio levels. So by the time a signal has got to here, it's AF, and it's also at a much higher voltage usually than what it is back there. So I guess it would make sense to separate that 12AX7 from the rest. I haven't checked the heater lines, but we can do that once we power it up. We just measure the voltage on the heater pins. If we take out all the tubes and we power this up carefully with the dim bulb tester, we can check the various points. For example, this anode, we can check for high voltage there. We can check there, we can check there, we can check there. But we can also check on the other tubes, because that second B plus after that resistor goes along here, goes up there, and it goes to this anode. They've actually got a separation here between that B plus and the B plus for that one there. I don't know why. Well, actually, yeah, I do know why. The one anode, this anode here, is producing the inverted version of the signal, and this anode here is feeding the main signal to drive the one power tube, and it's sort of inverted. We'll get into that later. So they've separated the two with another pi RC circuit, 12K and 4 microfarads, and that goes through a 470K to that anode. And then so you can check for voltages there. And you can also check here. You can go to all of them. If you follow this all through, usually 1 or 2 points of the tube, 1 or 2 sockets of the tube should have high voltage. And the way it gets there is through the coils. Usually you'll find a DC path to a B plus line. There are some cases where some coils or some tubes are disabled. For example, in this case here, it seems that if you choose FM, sometimes when you choose FM, or AM rather, the FM supply is broken. So they figure you don't need to feed the FM block if you're listening to AM, so the B plus doesn't get to the FM tube. Or if you're listening to FM, then usually what they do is they cut the supply to the oscillator section of the mixer tube because of this tube here. So it looks like the oscillator section will be here, and it looks like that's B plus. So B plus won't get to here, so you don't have the oscillator of the AM working. In other words, the AM oscillator is stopped so that your FM signal can get through that tube without interruptions, without noise. So I think I'm sure, as usual, I sort of waffle a bit, because sometimes when I'm waffling I remember stuff I should have checked. I think I've checked everything. There are a few danger points here. The filter cans haven't been swapped out. These guys over here. So you could get a pop. I think otherwise, I mean, there are some caps. This will be B plus coming through here. There are some capacitors here that will get high voltage. But there's no tubes in here. So if something goes wrong, it shouldn't be too dramatic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the meter on here to the B plus, and we're going to power it up and see what we get. I have the radio plugged in. It's plugged into the dim bulb tester with the isolation transformer. I have the limit function activated. It's not on bypass. It's off at the moment. I've got one light bulb on only. These are off. That means I've got 40 watt light bulb in series with the radio when I turn it on. I've got the radio selected to medium wave, so it's actually on. And that's measuring B plus. That's measuring literally the output from the selenium rectifier. That's the B plus, B1 plus, okay? We should see that bright and then dim. Let's see what happens. That's promising. It's drawing 90 milliamps. It's so dim, I can't see it because 90 milliamps doesn't really light that up. The radio is seeing 220 volts. The mains at the moment is at 230 something. And my B plus is 323 volts, which is high. If you recall, it said 270 to 280 or 270 to 278. But that's also expected because there are no tubes, there's no load. So everything is going straight on to static voltage. It's not drawing any current. The tubes aren't in, and the tubes are therefore not drawing any current. So yeah, it's working. And something else I've seen, the dial lamps are on, which means we've got our 6.3 volts. We've got our heater voltage as well, because the heaters see the same voltage as the light bulbs. And they're pretty bright because there's very little current limit at the moment. There's very little current going through at the moment. So the voltage is pretty close to clear mains. So that's pretty good. That's great. Our power supply seems to be working, and we don't know yet if the filter caps have a problem or not. This meter, this is Big Brother. You might have seen Little Brother. This meter gives us the DC voltage at that point and also the AC component, and we are seeing 0.1 volts on the B plus, which could mean that the filter caps are doing an incredibly good job of filtering the AC or the DC coming through there. However, because there's no current draw, that's incredibly deceptive. So we'll only know if the filtering is working, if there's good filtering, once we get this thing with some tubes in there. And I'll only do that when I have checked the output section, the power, and in fact the entire audio section of the radio, which is what I'm going to be doing next. Just another warning, when I switch this off, look what happens to the B plus. It is dropping, but it's dropping pretty slowly. There's still 250 volts on there. Now that tells us two things. One is there's very little leakage in the radio itself, because if there was a lot of leakage through some little caps that might be connected to ground, this thing would go down like a rocket. The other thing it tells you is if you turn this around and start fiddling start fiddling with the insides, you're going to get zapped. So you've got two options. You wait, let it discharge, or you have a discharging tool, which is really just a pretty high power resistor with two leads on there before you mess around. Be very, very careful. This stuff can really hurt you. So as usual, the next stage is pretty obvious. I'm going to check the output section, the audio section, and the audio section is made up of that ECC83 at the back there, which is empty, and the power output tube. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the entire circuit from the input of the phono. This has got a phono input over here. So if I can get the phono going in through the preamp tube and phase inverter stage over there, and then of course out of the power tube, through the power transformer and out to the speakers, we'll know that the entire back end of this radio is working well. And that's the task that awaits us. It's not complicated. It's just something you have to do pretty meticulously before you can even think of looking at this as a radio. This at the moment is a power amplifier that I'm looking at, or that I'm trying to restore. Take it one step at a time, and you can eat an elephant one steak at a time. All right, thanks for watching. Keep safe. I'll be back pretty soon with the next video. Not much else to do. And as soon as I have some progress, I'll get back to you. And if you've enjoyed this, please share, subscribe, and all that jazz. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.